The Super Bowl 57 sequel, well, it has no shortage of storylines and plenty at stake, from unheralded feats to revenge on the line to a historic single-season performance. Next Sunday, expected to cement a team's and possibly a player's legacy in NFL lore. As we are now welcomed by former Super Bowl winning defensive backs and CBS Sports NFL analysts Bryant, McFadden, and Logan Ryan, as we take a look at what's at stake for several heavy hitters as we begin to set the stage for Super Bowl 59. And guys, of course, I mean, plenty of focus already on Patrick Mahomes, already entering uncharted territory, looking to be the first quarterback to lead his team to back-to-back championships. So, B-Mac, let's start with you first. What's at stake for him in this quest to be the league's first ever three-peat?
A legendary dynasty, along with the best 8-year run we've ever seen in the National Football League. What Pat Mahomes has done has already been amazing, right? Unbelievable. But if he's able to win another Super Bowl, you talked about being the first team to ever go back-to-back, three-peat, never been done before. He would be the catalyst for that achievement. And then adding to his already impressive resume in terms of what he's done in the NFL. I mean, 8 years, you have 4 Super Bowls. His playoff record would be 18-3. He already has 50 total touchdowns, so one would think he would add to that number as well. And like I said, in an 8-year run, I mean, that's unbelievable. And Tom Brady is the guy who I consider to be the GOAT. But you look at what he did in his first 8 years, it does not amount to what Pat Mahomes have done, especially if he wins another Super Bowl along with being the first team to ever have a three-peat in his resume as well. So that's what's at stake for me when you look at Pat Mahomes as an individual, a legendary dynasty, but the best 8-year run ever in the National Football League.
Yeah, absolutely, B-Mac. I agree completely. What Patrick Mahomes has done is got the best start to any NFL career ever, let alone quarterback. And he is in that Mount Rushmore already. But his chase is with Tom Brady for a GOAT conversation. He just passed Montana for playoff wins. He's got the 3 Super Bowl MVPs already. He's got the 2-time NFL MVP. So he's done all these things already. And it's going to be him and Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has that LeBron-level longevity on him, the 20-plus seasons of sustained greatness. And Tom Brady's got him head-to-head, obviously. You see the Super Bowl starts. Like, the Tom Brady numbers are ridiculous, double what anyone else has ever done. That takes a lot of time. But Mahomes is on pace. He's right on pace. And what Brady has never done was win 3 in a row. He's came close, but he's never done that to win 3 in a row. Mahomes will have something in that conversation. We're going to see some talk shows talking about who's the GOAT quarterback right now, Mahomes or Brady, if he's able to do something that Brady and Belichick have never done, which is three-peating, never been done in NFL history. So he's on pace, well on pace to beat all of Brady's records, but he can have that conversation as soon as 3 weeks from now. Is he the greatest of all time? He can do something that Tom Brady's never done.
Yeah, but then we can't discount Mahomes' head coach because, yeah, quarterback obviously gets a lot of attention, but think about Andy Reid's resume. He won a conference championship and reached the playoffs 9 times with Donovan McNabb back in Philly. He had 4 playoff appearances in Kansas City with Alex Smith. I'm talking even before the Mahomes era began. Now eyeing his 3rd straight Super Bowl title, and did this with a number of mix-ups around that roster. With all of that being said, Logan, coming back to you, what's at stake for Big Red? Should he lead his guys to their 4th Super Bowl title in 6 years?
Oh, Big Red wants some respect in his name as well, right? He wants to get in that Belichick GOAT conversation. And when you start looking at these numbers, I wrote them down. We know what he did in the Eagles, right? We knew what he did with McNabb in that era of the NFC championships. He wasn't able to get the Super Bowl, and they wanted to move on. He wanted to move on. He comes to Kansas City, 12 seasons in Kansas City, 11 postseason appearances, 9 division titles, 7 AFC championship games, 5 Super Bowl appearances. Right? That is unbelievable as a career. This is his 2nd stint at it. So he's been having greatness in 2 different eras. And think about a coach. You see him right there on the list. He's on his way, only behind Belichick. He's chasing that. But he's done this in essentially, B-Mac, 2 different generations of players. Right? He did it with McNabb in that day and those Philadelphia Eagles teams. And he's able to still be the same coach and work with these kids nowadays that need to have cell phone breaks, and they're born in 2000s, and you still get the best out of this generation of player. I've seen what Belichick did in one spot for 20 years, but for Andy to do this in 2 different teams, to bring that many championship games, that many Super Bowl appearances for 2 different organizations in 2 different decades is unbelievable, and that's rare air in itself. and he's chasing Belichick down to be the GOAT, but he's doing something Belichick's never done, which will be this three-peat as well.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you in terms of what's at stake for Andy Reid. I believe he goes on and win another Super Bowl. Of course, the three-peat, doing something that has never been done before is a monumental achievement. But what's at stake for Andy Reid as an individual head coach? I think he would cement himself as the second best coach in the National Football League in existence. Now, and he would be in the same direction as Bill Belichick in terms of chasing Bill Belichick down. Now, hear me out with this in terms of being the second best coach in NFL history. There are a lot of people in terms of historians of the game, people that have followed the game their entire life. They feel like Don Shula is still the second best coach in the National Football League ever. Some people still feel like Chuck Noll is in top 3 as well when you look at winning 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the midst of a dynasty in the 70s. Now, if you look at Don Shula, he doesn't have the amount of Super Bowls that Andy Reid has, but he has 3 things that has never been done before. Number 1, coached the only perfect season from start to finish en route to winning a championship. That's never been done before. Number 2, most regular season wins in the history of the game, 328. And the final major stat associated with the great Don Shula, most total wins as a head coach, 347. Those are 3 things we don't know what we will ever see done again because he's held on to those numbers for such a long time. So if Andy Reid is able to win another Super Bowl and, of course, add to his impressive resume in terms of historic-like numbers, a three-peat, I think he surpasses Don Shula. And right there with you in terms of what you said, Logan, he's on the same street as Bill Belichick. Not next to him, but he's on the same street. And if he coaches long enough, who knows what could happen?
That was my next question for you. I was going to say, well, how much more do we need to see from Reid? What does Reid need to accomplish to maybe get on, you said on that same street, but get next to the Bill Belichick? Is that like a perfect season? Is that amassing the number of wins, postseason wins? What is that?
For me, I'll say amount of wins because I look at Andy Reid right now. As I stated, Don Shula, he has 328 regular season wins. Andy Reid has 273. And you look at total wins, Don Shula had 347. Andy Reid has 301. So he's not that far behind. And he shared with our very own Pete Prisco just a year ago at the Combine that he doesn't see himself walking away from the game anytime soon. So that's what he shared with Pete Prisco last year at the Combine. Who knows how he would feel if they won another championship? Hey, that might initiate another fire in him to go keep doing it all over again, especially when you have the head coach. So me personally, if he can get close to Don Shula or even surpassing Don Shula in one of those 2 stats, now we have to have a legit conversation between Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, in my opinion.
Definitely in the realm of possibilities, especially when you have that guy under center on your team. But on the other side of this matchup, fellas, Jaylen Hurts is the first quarterback to lose their Super Bowl debut as a starter and then make it back to the big game. The previous 19 never made it back. And for the sake of this argument, I'm going to just throw this out there, guys. Nick Foles has a statue outside of Lincoln Financial Field for that Philly special that helped lead to Super Bowl 52. So what's at stake for Hurts, B-Mac? What does he need to do to get a statue?
What's at stake for Hurts? He gets a chance to silence the haters. Silence the haters. Think about this. Jaylen Hurts has been so good, especially this year, but he's been criticized oftentimes. And I think, Logan, the only person that has been criticized more than Jaylen Hurts in their building is their head coach, Nick Sirianni. And both individuals have been tied to each other in terms of how good they've been and how successful they've been. But people oftentimes question what? Can Jaylen Hurts make the big play? Can Jaylen Hurts find a way to win ball games? Well, get this. The last 3 seasons, they won at least 12 games with Jaylen Hurts as the starting quarterback. He's reached the playoffs every year since 2021, and he's about to play in his 2nd Super Bowl game in 3 years. He is a winner. So why the haters question, can he get the job done? Why the haters question, is he QB1? Is he a franchise quarterback? I don't question, but we know there's a lot of naysayers throughout our country, and they're in Philadelphia that question Jaylen Hurts. So me personally, if he wins, Kiana Logan, Haters, y'all got to silence all that BS about Jaylen Hurts. I feel like he's already him, but all he would do is just put a stamp of approval on what type of player he is as QB1 franchise quarterback for the Eagles, and most importantly, a legit winner.
Yeah, I don't know if Jaylen Hurts will ever fully get his credit just based on what his style of play looks like. It's not pretty enough for us at the eye. But, man, he's going to have a heck of a book deal and a movie deal if he gets this done now. He's been nothing but a winner since he was a kid. You look at the Alabama story when he was benched and Tua came in the game. He was a great teammate, right? And he was a SEC, all-SEC quarterback, gets benched in the national championship, takes on the chin, transfers to Oklahoma. They essentially replace him with Tua, goes to Oklahoma, wins a Heisman, comes to the Eagles to sit and takes a starting job, goes to the Super Bowl there, and he was the best player on that team in that Super Bowl in that year, right? He really led it. Then they bring Saquon Barkley in, take a lot of pressure off his back, and now Saquon looks like the best player, but Jaylen Hurts has been to his second Super Bowl in 3 years. That's more than Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowls he's been doing his entire career. That's more Super Bowls than Drew Brees has been through. That's more Super Bowls than Phillip Rivers has been through. So there's been a lot of Hall of Fame quarterbacks, a lot of really good quarterbacks we grew up idolizing. Jaylen Hurts probably idolized, that did not get to 2 Super Bowls. And he's played really well in the Super Bowl. So you win a Super Bowl in Philly, you get a statue. You become legendary. I know the fan base. I didn't grow up far from that stadium. I know what it means there. If you don't see Gilly the Kid and those guys, what they're doing in the city right now, they'll be a legend for them and all those people in Philly. So I think he's chasing legendary status. He's doing something a lot of quarterbacks have never done. And when he does come out with that documentary when he retires, it's going to be pretty interesting. The guy's been winning his whole life, and he's been doubted his whole life. So he's not new to this.
The fellas dropping facts, bringing up Breeze, bringing up Rodgers, B-Mac telling them, shh, silence the haters if you can get that done in a week and some days. But, guys, we can't talk about Super Bowl 59 without talking Saquon Barkley in the season that he's had in his first year in Philly. Just after what we saw on Sunday, Barkley now has 7 touchdown runs of at least 60 yards, with 3 of them coming in the postseason. That's more than any other player has had in their entire career. And then to add an extra layer, he's doing this in a time where the passing game has seemed to supersede the run. So, Logan, with that being said, what's at stake for Saquon in one of the most impressive rushing campaigns that we've maybe seen in a while?
I mean, Saquon Barkley needs a percentage of every free agent running back deal after this. He might have saved the free agency running back. They try to destroy the position. They try to say running back don't pay him, and Saquon Barkley has proved himself right time and time again. And look, you see the helmet behind me. I was a captain for the New York Giants alongside Saquon Barkley when he tore his ACL, right? And people wrote him off and said he has injury history. He wasn't good since his rookie year. I was there when he rehabbed, bust his butt to can't come back, and he didn't have a great year off of the injury. They said he'll never be the same. He's washed up. Gettleman should have never drafted a running back in the top 5. It's a bad investment, not worth it. And he gets written off in New York. Literally the most electric player in the league gets written off by the New York Giants, goes to divisional rival, and proves himself right. This guy works hard. He was like, man, Logan, why is it not working? I'm working so hard. Why is it not coming to fruition? And by God's timing, by the perfect timing, he's having this ability to show all his God-given talents, and it showcases his hard work. I've been with a lot of players, one of the most talented I've ever played with from day one. He's like that. He's nice. Odell said the nicest he's ever seen put on the cleats, and it's true. When you see him in practice, when you see a humble superstar, this is what you want kids to be like growing up. I want my son to model how he acts and credits his teammates. So Saquon Barkley represents a lot. He's a personal friend to me, but I'm just so happy he's having this year to prove not only himself, the Giants, the Eagles, all the people that believed in him right, the free agency market. It means a lot, man, because he did it the right way, and he's balling out at the highest level.
Well, for me, what's at stake for Saquon Barkley if he's able to go and lead his team to a Super Bowl win, which would be his first, along with potentially winning the MVP of the game? What's at stake for Saquon Barkley? Brace yourself. He would be on track to becoming a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He would be on track to becoming a first ballot Hall of Famer, and here's why. When you look at what he's on the cusp of doing, Kiana, you just talked about a record-breaking season. He's about to have the most rushing yards ever in a season, surpassing the great Terrell Davis, who's in the Hall of Fame. But if you look at the 2 most recent first ballot running backs to enter into football heaven, 2017, LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk in 2011. When you look at LaDainian Tomlinson, he played 11 years. He had over 1,300 yards, 684 yards to be exact. 145 touchdowns. Crazy numbers. Look at Marshall Faulk. He played 12 years. He had over 12,000 yards, 100 touchdowns. But get this, Saquon, 7 years. The game is different. We know it's a passing league right now, but Saquon has over 7,200 yards, 48 touchdowns. But here's the key nugget. Look at what Saquon has done in the playoffs. The great LaDainian Tomlinson, he played in 10 playoff games. He had 468 rushing yards in 10 playoff games in his career, 6 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, in 5 playoff games, 556 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's already surpassed the great LaDainian Tomlinson in postseason play. What about the great Marshall Faulk, the greatest show on turf? He played in 12 playoff games. He had 606 yards rushing, only 6 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, once again, 556. He's right there. One would think he's going to pass Marshall Faulk in doing it in less games, along with having more touchdowns already than the great Marshall Faulk. And the last key nugget in terms of why I believe Saquon Barkley will be in track to being a first ballot Hall of Famer if he win the Super Bowl, if his team win the Super Bowl, and most importantly, win the MVP. Look at the team they would have to beat. The Goliath of the NFL. The Michael Jordan and the Phil Jackson of the NFL. The team no one wants to see. The team no one can find a way to beat. If they achieve that goal with Saquon Barkley being the lead singer of their success, no question, Mr. Barkley, you're in track to becoming a first ballot Hall of Fame.
That's the tallest hill to climb right there, it seems, in the NFL. But like you mentioned, B-Mac, those numbers that you were bringing out, those numbers don't lie, fellas. And like you said, Logan, putting the running backs, their deserved contracts back on the map. Fellas, as always, we appreciate the insight, but regardless which way it goes, history will be made in Super Bowl 59. Appreciate it, guys. And whether it's leading up to, during, or after the Super Bowl, we will have you covered from analysis to highlights to on-site reaction. Stay locked on CBS Sports HQ 24/7, all postseason long.